Hi, Michael Woodworth with Makari Wellness. I'd like to make a brief video to introduce people to the world of Chinese herbal medicine. And I say I'd like to make a brief video because it's a deep, long, complicated subject. And I feel that the majority of people that have experienced herbs or allopathic medicine or anything really just comes from a brief exposure to Dr. Oz or a mindset similar to allopathic medicine where people are saying, take this herb, it's good for, where people are taking a single herb for a condition. And I want to offer you just some philosophical ideas to maybe help change your mindset. So Chinese herbal medicine is thousands of years old, and it's a very complex system that was the first system of medicine based on actual diagnosis, looking at a person's symptoms, their complaints, and then taking an objective approach, so touching them, feeling what has changed in their body. In Chinese medicine, we have a very complicated pulse system, but it's amazing. And when you get your pulse taken and someone can tell you all the things you're feeling without you telling them, then maybe you start to believe them. But more importantly, Chinese medicine not only takes into account what a person is complaining of, but the physical signs they find in the body. So we also have these things called mu points or alarm points, where we feel around the body and we palpate for areas that are exceedingly tender. Maybe there's hard indurations or there's a soft collapsing of the tissue. Abdominal diagnosis, fukushin, which is palpating the abdomen where all the internal organs lay, and there's several systems of abdominal diagnosis out there. And then we have tongue diagnosis, which people are fairly familiar with, where we look at the tongue and it gives you an example of how fluids or materials are being processed, or what materials or fluids are missing or are too abundant in the body. And we take all of this information and we put it together. What has happened is this modern approach of saying this herb is good for this, that this is absolutely flies in the face of Chinese medicine. And unfortunately, the school systems where we all graduate, and this is true even in China, teach what's basically called traditional Chinese medicine, which is TCM. And it was a system that was developed after Mao Zedong took over China, and the communists overthrew the government, and they basically created this homogenized system rule. Basically what they were trying to do is copy the Western medical system and try to rule out effective physicians or doctors for their population in a short period of time. The way it used to be was that you'd have a teacher and a disciple would follow this teacher around every day, for 8 or 10 years, and then he would be qualified to practice the medicine. Now it's become a business where, how many people can you fit into a room? So there's no way during the school process that you can actually learn pulse diagnosis. I know, I was one of those graduate students who thought I knew, and I'm sure they're watching this and they're swearing at me. But the truth of the matter is, if you don't sit down and find a teacher who can work with you on a discipleship, you won't learn. Okay, so when we take all this information and we glean this from the person sitting in front of us, what we're evaluating is not only that individual as one factor of the equation. Let's call the individual A. But they have an ailment. So that ailment, maybe it's an internal disorder from a life of unregulated dietary practices. That would be B. Or maybe it's being exposed to an external pathogen like a flu or a particular virus that's going around, and that would be the B. So you have A, the individual, plus B, let's say virus or bacterial infection, equals C. And C is the end result of that equation, that this person plus this, and we can use examples of how different viral infections are affecting people more seriously in the lungs, in the cardiac area. Maybe they're affecting people more on a digestive plane. What will happen is wherever a person has their inherited or constitutional weakness or deficiencies, that is where the damage will eventually show. That's their weak spot. And everyone's weak spots are different. That's why some people will be exposed to something and have very little symptoms or complaints, and another person can be absolutely devastated. This is why you use Chinese medicine in the first place, is as prevention. We use all these tools of pulse, abdomen, tongue, ear, in your symptoms history to determine where you are, and we know where we want you to go, and then we calculate and change herbal formulas to get you there. Because truly, if you're changing, the supplements or the herbs you take should change likewise. Chinese herbs are amazing for this, and I think the future of combining this level of herbal knowledge with what we know about functional medicine that's coming from the Western labs and stuff, I think that there's a great hope for treating individuals and not trying to solve individual problems with a patented medication made for profit. So, long story short, is there's actually different schools of herbal theory. There's classical herbs, there's traditional, there's the spleen stomach school, the Shanghan school, the Wenbing school, and all of these reflect different periods of time in different regions of China, and also different climates, right? Because different diseases will come with different populations, different diets, different environmental concerns, etc. Different demographic information, wealthy, poor, starving, obese, etc. So all of these are variables, but you can use Chinese medicine to supplement even your orthopedic work or your blood. And how it works, in short, is that we're going to evaluate where a person is. So if you don't have an external pathogen, if you have a cold or a flu or something external that was triggered from an outside environment and it came into you and created a problem, we got to deal with that first. Okay, that's the first thing. You can't just treat whatever you want. There's an order of operations. There's a logical order of thinking. If there's no external pathogen or any surface, something on the surface that doesn't need to be addressed, then we can address the person. And we find out where they are and we treat that layer of them. So I want you to think of the body as having three. It's got to be three-dimensional because there's a fluid layer, there's an air layer, there's a blood layer, and then there's these tissue layers going outwards from the center outwards, right? Think in a sphere. So you have, not only is it in the gas and air level of the body, is it in the fluid level, or is it in the blood level being the deepest? But now, where in the body tissue? Is it at the bones? Is it on the surface at the hair and skin of the body, like arm hair, skin hair? And this is called conformations. So then you have a conformation. So we identify in what layer, we identify where it is, and then we identify, is it excess, there's too much of something, or is it deficiency, too little of something? Is it hot? Is there more heat? And even in that phrase heat, is it excess heat or deficient heat? What would be an example of that? Because you'd think if you have heat, that's more energy, right? So ask anyone who's gone through menopause. They didn't feel like they had more energy, I'm sure, but yet they were showing signs of heat as the heat floated up and opened their pores and carried fluid out, until one point where maybe they were so dry they couldn't sweat anymore. So that would be deficient heat. The metaphor we use in our office is a car that's low on oil. Is that good for the car? No, that's bad for the car. The car is overheating because it does not have enough fluids, and then that heat will cause other problems. And it can cause any number of problems. So in essence, this is what internal medicine in Chinese herbs looks like. We identify what's going on in your body and how to support your body in responding to whatever it is, whether it's fixing your body or expelling an external attack or trying to prevent the external attack. And when you make use of this preventative medicine, there's an idea, doing maintenance on ourselves, that we will be best equipped for when an assault comes. Another shortcoming in our way of thinking, we don't realize, just like if we were to get in a car accident and get a dent in our automobile, we might take it to a mechanic. And it's very rare that I ever hear someone come in and ask what can be done to maximize their health. We are getting assaulted all the time, like when you get a cold, when you had food poisoning, when you got sick, when you were just feeling run down. You didn't realize that those were all dents and mini assaults on you as a person, which weakened you for the future. But we could have repaired those. We can repair those. We can mitigate those and bring them back to where we can get you at whatever your 100% is. And so we see this commonly when people are being treated and they start going, wow, I haven't been sick since I've been seeing you. And I usually have had the flu 3 times by now, and I haven't had it for the last 5 years. And matter of fact, I haven't even gotten sick. And what's interesting is people don't think about their illnesses when they're not having it. So it's only when they have a reflection of what it was like before and what it's like now. But after you get sick, you can repair that damage. There's always insults to the body that you can make stronger. And then people commonly ask, do I need to be on herbs for the rest of my life? Well, when do you stop giving your car gasoline? When do you stop giving your car oil? And ultimately, no, you don't need to be on herbs the rest of your life, but it's very rare that any individual in the modern society is living the life without problems. So, do we sleep enough? Do we not stress enough? Do we eat a very clean diet? Are we exposed to environmental toxicities, etc.? And as long as you have those, because we're not, living up in the clean mountain air, drinking from fresh water sources, eating, organic fruit from the trees, and sleeping and meditating all day with no stress, that's a hard life to maintain, right? So more or less, I think everyone can benefit from herbal medicine. You just have to, once again, be willing to drink it, right? Our custom herbs are basically teas that you have to drink, and they're not always built for taste. And you have to be able to give it time, because this is chemistry now we're talking about. This is pharmacology, but using botanicals. They're very safe, and in light of current situations, we've once again seen the emergence of this medicine being applied in very dire circumstances, and helping people not go into as much illness as they might have previously. So if you have any questions, please, once again, peruse around our website, educate yourself, and sign up for our newsletter. There's dietary recommendations, and we're always trying to give information to people. Once again, simple motto: make well, be blessed. Thanks.